I've been doing home health aid work for going on 11 years. Most of what you see, you learn to set down eventually. But there are certain nights that just become part of you. And not in a good way. What I'm about to tell you happened about 4 years ago, and I still think about it more than I probably should. I picked up an overnight through a staffing agency. The client was an 81-year-old man named Alfred. His son Greg had called looking for someone experienced with late-stage cognitive decline, Lewy body dementia specifically. Greg was polite, professional. He explained that he lived 40 minutes away, worked early mornings, and needed someone to cover his father from 10 at night until 6 in the morning. Just one night to start, he said. See how it goes. I showed up around 9:30. It was a split level on a quiet road where the houses sat far apart and the trees had grown in close. Greg walked me through quickly. Kitchen, bathroom, the hospital bed set up in what used to be the dining room. Alfred was already in bed. Greg introduced us. Alfred looked at me with clear eyes, said pleasure to meet you, and seemed completely fine, sharp even. Greg kissed his father on the forehead and left. That was my first night in that house, and my last. The first few hours were uneventful. I sat in the kitchen with a book. I wasn't really reading. Alfred slept. I checked on him every half hour. Each time, he was on his back, breathing slow and even, hands folded on his chest like a man who had long since made peace with sleep. Around midnight, he was facing the wall. Same quiet breathing, just no longer facing the ceiling. I didn't make anything of it. A little after 2, I heard his voice from the other room. He was awake, staring upward. I asked if he needed anything. He said very quietly, "She keeps coming to the foot of the bed." I asked who he had meant. He turned in a perfect normal tone, said he needed some water. I brought it. He thanked me, closed his eyes, and he went to sleep inside 2 minutes. I want to be clear that up to this point, I wasn't scared. People with Lewy body dementia have vivid hallucinations. Visual ones, often of people or animals. Whatever Alfred saw at the foot of his bed was a product of his neurology. I knew that. I reminded myself of that. What I couldn't easily explain was what happened around 4 in the morning. I walked through the dark living room to stretch my legs and stopped at the hallway. At the end of it, maybe 30 feet away, Alfred was standing in front of a closed storage room door, socks, thin cotton pants, and one hand raised resting flat against it. I called his name softly. He didn't move. I walked toward him and called again. He turned, perfectly calm, he said. I was just checking. I asked what he was checking on. He looked at the door, then back at me. She doesn't like it when I open it. I walked him back to bed. He went without resistance, pulled the blanket up himself, closed his eyes. I stood outside that storage room for a long time afterward. The door had a push-button lock on the knob, the kind you could lock from the inside. It was locked. I had told myself Greg had probably locked it before he left. I went back to the kitchen, kept the light on, and held my book without reading it. At 5:15, I heard the storage room door open. The small mechanical click of the push button releasing, the soft groan of the hinges, and then a silence that felt louder than any sound before it. I stood up slowly and walked to the hallway. The door was open about 4 inches, dark behind it. Alfred was in bed. I could see him from where I stood, asleep, on his back, hands folded on his chest. I turned back toward the kitchen. That's when Alfred was standing directly behind me. Not in his bed, behind me. Close enough that I nearly walked into him. He was holding a claw hammer at his side, worn wooden handle, knuckles white around the grip. His eyes were wide open and fixed on me. But there was nothing behind them I recognized as the man I'd met that evening. Not confusion, not the vague wandering expression I'd come to expect, just flat, purposeful attention. He swung before I could say his name. I got my forearm up, and the hammer glanced off and hit the wall. I moved back and sideways, putting the hallway between us. He came toward me again with the same measured, unhurried walk. No raving, no shouting. Completely silent. That was the part that stayed with me. I got around him, through the living room, grabbed my bag from the kitchen chair without stopping, and went out the front door. I called Greg from the driveway, hands shaking. He didn't believe me at first. Then something in my voice made him stop talking. He said he'd be there in 40 minutes. I stood in the cold and watched the windows until his headlights came up in the road. He found Alfred in the hospital bed, asleep, hands folded on his chest. The hammer was on the kitchen table. Greg called later to apologize. Said his father had never been violent before, didn't know where the hammer had come from. I told him I didn't blame Alfred, and that I hope he found the right help for him. I never went back. Here's where I've landed 4 years later. The easy explanation is dementia, sudden aggression, a man moving through his home on muscle memory. I don't dismiss it, but I can't fully put down the other possibility. Alfred, when I met him, had been sharp, present. The confusion came and went away that felt almost managed. In the storage room door, I was meant to look at it. My attention was pulled down the hallway while Alfred was already behind me. Whether his illness works in ways that made that accidental, or whether some deliberate part of him had arranged it, I genuinely cannot say. What I can say is that the attack was not frantic. It was silent, and it was aimed. A man who wanted to appear lost had, and in the moment, known exactly what he was doing. I hope Greg finds the right kind of help for his father. Whatever is happening inside Alfred, illness or something else, wearing illness like a coat, he needs more than an overnight aid can give him, and that aid will not be me.